Let's begin with Josephine Kabura Is still shedding light on the affidavit she presented on former devolution cabinet secretary Anne Waiguru, linking her to the 791 million shillings NYS scandal. Kabura is right at this moment talking to investigators of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Our reporter Timothy Otieno will be joining us a little bit later to shed more light of how that story is developing, but she arrived earlier on today, and of course we'll get more details of that particular story. But to another story here now, Justice Philip Tunoi finds himself in a raging battle over his career. Will he survive the onslaught? Well, that's a question that we seek to answer when we spoke to Eric Mutua of the Law Society of Kenya. This comes as questions are raised over whether or not the president is justified to suspend the formation of a tribunal to investigate claims that he received a bribe.
What is LSK's position on the president's refusal to set up a tribunal?
As far as the interpretation of Article 168(5) is concerned, once the Judicial Service Commission forwards a petition to the president indicating that in their estimation they believe that it raises reasonable grounds to warrant the president constitute a tribunal, then the president has no other role, he has no other responsibility, he has no other jurisdiction other than to constitute the tribunal, which now will be able to sit, receive evidence from all the parties concerned, hear the witnesses, look at all the documentary evidence, and thereafter make a determination whether or not there is adequate grounds to have the judge removed as a judge. In our view, the letter by Kinyua to the effect that the president is relying on some ongoing proceedings in the Court of Appeal is erroneous and is either a deliberate misinterpretation of the law or a genuine misinterpretation of the law, because the argument has been that since the High Court made a determination that the retirement age is 70 years, then as far as that determination is concerned, the Honorable Justice Tunoi is no longer a judge. What they are not telling the public is that in terms of the proceedings at the Court of Appeal, there is already a stay of the decision by the High Court. Once there's a stay of the decision by the High Court, then the status quo would be that the judge continues being a judge of the Supreme Court, and therefore the Judicial Service Commission and the tribunal which is to be constituted as jurisdiction over that kind of a judge. It is therefore, if the president maintains and refuses completely to appoint a tribunal, then it's a version of the Constitution. It is a violation, a gross one, a violation of the Constitution. Yes.
Is the LSK concerned that the president is defying the JSC for the second time round?
Yes, the Law Society of Kenya is very concerned of this latest move by the president to decline to appoint a tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission, because we are looking at the consequences. What are the consequences of that kind of a failure? You create what one can say is a constitutional crisis, because I've said this and I want to repeat it, that if there is no tribunal constituted by the end of today, the consequences are so grave in that any other tribunal which is to be formed after today, it will be subject to a challenge in court because it will have been constituted outside a constitutional framework. And once that happens, then chances are that that kind of a body will be declared as illegal and unconstitutional. Yes.
In your opinion, do you believe that the president is getting sound advice with regards to the law, given
I don't want
the AG sits on the JSC?
Well, there are two things which could be happening. One of them is that either the president is not receiving the right kind of advice, legal advice, or probably is receiving sound advice and ignoring that sound advice. It's okay, you can go in. Is either, there are two things which could be happening. One is either that is receiving the wrong legal advice, or is receiving the right legal advice but ignoring that advice. Yes. If you look at what has been happening in the High Court and the Court of Appeal, he has gone to court and questioned the decision by the Judicial Service Commission to ask him to retire at 70. And the High Court has agreed with the Judicial Service Commission and indicated that the retirement age should be 70. However, as I've pointed out, when he went to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal granted a stay, which means that he still remains a judge. Yes.
As we both know, today is the deadline for the setup of the tribunal. What next? What do we expect after this?
It's one of those situations where you can't have a definite answer to the question, because even if one decided to go to court now for purposes of seeking whatever orders you would seek in court, whatever orders you get will be overtaken by events, because there is no way you can get an order to force the president to constitute a tribunal. Even if you got a declaration that his actions were unconstitutional, still you have not cured the mischief. And this is the mischief, is that once the tribunal is not constituted, then it means therefore that the Honorable Justice Tunoi will never face a tribunal at all. Yes. Even if the Judicial Service Commission was to sit another time and forward the same petition to the president, chances are that one would still make an argument out of it that this is the same petition which was forwarded and it was not, a tribunal was not formed within the specified period. Yes. The only viable remedy which is available is basically to ask the other organs of the state, including Parliament, for the National Assembly probably to sit on the matter, make a determination that indeed there was a violation of the Constitution, and the consequences would be an impeachment. And that is why we have said that is the only viable option. But remember, we know realistically that that may not happen because of the composition of members of Parliament. Yes.
All right, let us revisit our top story, where Josephine Kabura is at this moment at the EACC offices, where she's shedding light on her affidavit she presented in court implicating former devolution CS Anne Waiguru amongst others. And this is in as far as the NYS 791 million shilling scandal is concerned. And we're now joined by Timothy Otieno, who's covering this story for us. Timothy, good afternoon. She still must be inside the Integrity Center, but paint for us a picture and as far as what got us to this particular moment.
Yes, good afternoon, Sophia. Yes, she's still inside. She has been at the EACC headquarters from about 10:45 in the morning when she arrived. And of course, she's coming to answer to an affidavit that she swore last week, bringing fresh allegations against former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru, having been involved in the 791 million shillings NYS scandal. Now, she's going to be talking through and shedding light on each and every point. It's a 112-point document, Sophia, that she's going to be presenting and shedding light to the investigators here. Now, Sophia, to answer your question, this began, of course, after she swore an affidavit last week at the High Court, and this affidavit explicitly mentioning former Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru as having actively been involved in a cover-up once the 791 million shilling NYS scandal was revealed to the public. Now, of course, in this affidavit, she mentions other people, of course, including political analyst Mutahi Ngunyi, whom, according to the affidavit, she said had been holding special meetings at Anne Waiguru's residence in Runda, and is the one who advised the then CS for devolution to issue a statement in regards to this scandal in order to deflect attention from her person. Now, the affidavit also, and what she will also be giving more information to in regards to, is, of course including mentionable names like Joseph Mugwanja, who was a director at the Banking Fraud Investigations Unit. Now, Joseph is believed to have requested Miss Kabura to hand over 80 million shillings under the instruction of Madam Waiguru, and this is believed to have been part of the money that went missing from this scandal. Hassan Noor, who was the Secretary of Administration at the Ministry of Devolution then, is believed to have been linked also in this matter and has been adversely mentioned in the affidavit that Madam Josephine Kabura is shedding light on currently with the investigators. Of course, Hassan Noor is believed to have given Madam Kabura, who is a businesswoman here in Nairobi, her first LPO, the local purchasing order. Now, of course, these including also Lois Mbarire, who is the sister for Madam Anne Waiguru, mentioned adversely as being the go-between between Waiguru and Miss Kabura and handled the monies and the tenders that Miss Kabura won when the Miss Waiguru was the CS for devolution. But the investigators here, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, will be seeking two things. One is to see the link and how Miss Anne Waiguru links with those mentioned in this affidavit, and secondly, they will be seeking to trace back the flow of cash that has taken place since this scandal erupted last year, Sophia.
Before I let you go briefly, so as this questioning goes on right now at the Integrity Center with the EACC officials, on the other hand, there are legal proceedings that are ongoing. The matter is before court. Fresh summons have been issued to those implicated with the 791 million shillings. And you also have a High Court judge that's asking for clarification from the CJ on whether this matter should be moved from the High Court and to the newly created division of the High Court, that's the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division Court. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is correct, and if you remember last year, the Director of Public Prosecution had written to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption to be joined in the investigations against then Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru because they believed at that time that some of the investigations that she was undergoing was falling on the mandate of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So the Commission, if you remember earlier last week, had issued a statement insisting that Ms. Waiguru indeed had been cleared, but not on the 791 NYS scandal, but rather on 4 other counts that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption were investigating against her person. Now, the High Court, of course, are directing fresh allegations, and the commissioners will have to be seeking ways that they can consolidate this investigation either into one, or whether they can hand over the investigations directly to fall under the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission or the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Of course, there have been claims that at the time, Ms. Waiguru's investigations for the NYS was falling under the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and not the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. A lot of confusion surrounding this matter, Sophia, but of course, with the directives issued, it remains to be seen how this is going to be playing out. But of course, the fresh investigations have begun, and hopefully with today's statement from Ms. Josephine Kabura, more light will be shed on this matter and perhaps a direction as to which body is mandated to take up this issue, Sophia.
All right, Timothy Atieno, thank you very much, coming to us live from the Integrity Center, where the grilling of Ms. Josephine Kabura is ongoing on the NYS 791 million shilling scandal. Of course, we'll bring you more details as we get them throughout the day. To another story that's developing, one person has died and 12 others hospitalized following a cholera outbreak in Ugunja, that's in Siaya County. Mbira area is the most affected region, and we're now joined by reporter Victor Ogale from Siaya. Victor, good afternoon. Talk to us about what the medical officers are saying about this outbreak.
Well, Sophia, one person died on Sunday. It was a lady, and 21 others are still in hospital. Though they are in various hospitals at Ambira Sub-County Hospital, where I am right now, St. Paul's Mission Hospital, and Ugunja and Rangala Mission Hospital, which is in Ugunja. And it is believed that the people are drawing water from a particular water point in Uhembo village from River Woruoya, and Ulubi. And some of the villages that have been heavily affected are Sango, Uhembo, Rangala, Kobare, Rarieda, Ochiko, Wange, and Nyanzi. And according to the medical officer of health, Samuel Omondi, County Director of Health, he told me that they've had 80 cases so far in the past 2 weeks.
All right, and what are they doing in terms of mitigation to ensure this does not continue?
Yeah, already the medical officers on the ground who are doing community awareness to the people, urging them to boil water, rather treat water, because there are people who do not chlorinate their water and they just consume. Like we had one of the victims, a person called Philip Ojambo, who told me that he just went to aid his grandmother at the farm, and he asked the grandmother to give him water. And the grandmother gave him water, and after taking water the following day, he felt ill and he came to hospital.